Everyone knows Steph Curry is a star on the court. But what happens when he's treated like he doesn't belong? Prepare to be shocked, because this airport encounter will make your jaw drop. Steph Curry, a name synonymous with basketball brilliance, is just as known for his profound humility and quiet grace. Today, having just completed a whirlwind media tour, he was simply trying to catch a flight. Unlike many athletes of his stature, Steph preferred to travel without the fanfare. No entourage, no special treatment, just him and his carry-on. He was headed to San Francisco for a charity event, something incredibly close to his heart. The idea of helping kids, making a difference in their lives, it fueled him. He'd never miss an opportunity to lend a hand, or a jump shot, wherever he was needed. At the gate, passengers were forming a queue. Steph casually joined the first-class line, hood pulled low, sunglasses concealing his eyes, hoping to avoid unnecessary attention. Most were engrossed in their phones or hushed conversations. But one woman, with a designer handbag and an air of impatience thicker than airport coffee, caught his eye. She paced a little, tapping her foot, a visual symphony of privilege and annoyance. When the airline attendant announced first-class boarding, Steph moved forward, and that's when it happened. "Excuse me," she snapped, her voice cutting through the quiet like a shard of glass. "This line is for first-class passengers only." Steph blinked, not from surprise but from a moment's pause. He hadn't even uttered a word, yet her assumptions were as clear as day. She clearly didn't believe he belonged there, in her world of luxury and entitlement. A ripple of discomfort went through the surrounding passengers, but no one dared intervene. For a heartbeat, Steph considered simply letting the attendant handle the situation, letting the words roll off his back. But then, a wave of memories washed over him. Memories of how his own parents had been unfairly judged, how his mom had instilled in him the importance of standing up for what is right, but always with grace. He decided this was one of those times. The attendant, clearly recognizing Steph, quickly intervened with a warm smile. "Mr. Curry, please, you're more than welcome to board." But the woman wasn't backing down. "Are you sure?" she demanded, her eyes narrowed. "I've seen people try to jump the line before." The air crackled with tension. People were now whispering, trying to figure out who this unassuming man was. Steph remained calm. He simply smiled, a gentle, unforced smile. "It's all right," he said, his voice low and even. "I can wait my turn." Steph stepped aside, letting the woman board ahead of him. He wasn't going to engage in a public squabble, especially not in an airport where chaos reigned supreme. It wasn't about him personally. It was about the subtle acts of prejudice that people often overlook. It was about teaching a lesson, but not through confrontation, through simple, dignified action. He knew, deep down, that silence could sometimes be more powerful than words. He'd always believed in leading by example, and he wasn't about to let anyone strip that away from him. As he boarded the plane moments later, he saw the woman, already settled in her seat, flipping through a glossy magazine, seemingly oblivious to what had just transpired. He offered a polite nod to the flight attendants as he stowed his bag and settled into his seat. The cabin hummed with the sounds of anticipation, punctuated by quiet murmurs of conversations. Steph put on his noise-canceling headphones, ready to retreat into his playlist, but fate had other plans. Minutes before takeoff, the woman flagged down a flight attendant, her voice echoing with impatience. "Excuse me," she said loudly. "Why is it so warm in here? Can you adjust the air conditioning?" The attendant, with the patience of a saint, nodded politely. "Certainly, I'll check on that for you, ma'am." Steph glanced up, a slight sigh escaping his lips, noticing the growing unease among some of the other passengers. It wasn't unusual for passengers to make requests during a flight, but her tone was dripping with entitlement. He tried to focus on his playlist, but her complaints continued to trickle through. The service, the seating, even the temperature of the water. Nothing seemed to satisfy her. He could feel a sense of empathy, not for her, but for those forced to witness her behavior. But the real turning point came mid-flight, when the flight attendants were serving meals. Steph, ever the gracious soul, thanked them with a warm smile. A simple interaction, yes, but it caught the attention of a young boy a few rows back. His eyes widened, and he excitedly nudged his father. "Dad," he whispered, voice filled with awe, "that's Steph Curry." Steph heard and smiled, giving the boy a small wave. The kid beamed, his pure, unadulterated joy spreading to others nearby, including the woman who seemed to have recognized him, but quickly brushed it off, turning away with a dismissive air. The flight attendant came around to clear the trays, and a simple action of kindness led to the unexpected unfolding. The young boy and his father approached Steph, the father clearly hesitant but respectful. "Mr. Curry," the dad began, "I apologize for bothering you, but my son is a huge fan. Would it be possible to get a quick picture?" Steph took off his headphones, his smile widening. "Of course," he said. "What's your name, buddy?" The boy, now grinning ear to ear, stammered, "It's Liam." "Well, Liam," Steph said, "it's great to meet you. Let's do this." As they posed for the picture, the woman, it seems, finally put two and two together. Her face turned a shade of crimson, and she quickly averted her gaze, pretending to be engrossed in her magazine. Steph, out of the corner of his eye, noticed her reaction, but chose to ignore it. His focus was on Liam and his dad, not on creating a scene. This was a moment of pure, unfiltered joy, and he wasn't about to let anything take away from it. The flight attendant, having noticed the unfolding drama, smiled. "Mr. Curry, I hope you're enjoying your flight. Please let us know if you need anything." Steph nodded. "Thank you. It's been great so far." But the woman couldn't take it anymore. She turned, a touch of hesitancy in her voice. "Excuse me," she began. "Are you, someone famous?" Steph glanced at her, his face calm but unreadable. "I play basketball," he said simply. It was, to say the least, an understatement. But he wasn't going to give her the satisfaction of an explanation. The woman's face turned an even deeper shade of red as she realized the full scope of her earlier assumptions. This wasn't just anyone. This was Steph Curry, one of the most recognizable and respected athletes in the world, and she had dismissed him as if he were an inconvenience to her perfect day. What Steph did next was truly impressive. He simply leaned back in his seat and returned to his music, acting as if absolutely nothing had happened. His ability to navigate the situation with grace was more impactful than any confrontation could ever be. He wasn't one for drama. He was a testament to quiet strength. As the plane began its descent, the woman fidgeted uncomfortably in her seat. She kept glancing back at Steph, as if trying to decide whether she should apologize. But Steph didn't seem to notice, or perhaps he chose not to. When the plane landed, Steph stood up, helped a fellow passenger with their bag, and waited his turn to exit, just like everyone else. Before he stepped off the plane, Liam and his dad approached him one last time. "Thank you, Mr. Curry," the dad said sincerely. "You made our flight unforgettable." Steph smiled. "No problem. Take care. You too." As he walked through the terminal, the woman followed, clearly rattled. She didn't say a word, but the lesson was plastered across her face. She had judged him unfairly, and Steph's actions had illuminated her mistake. Steph made his way through the terminal, trying to blend into the crowd despite being a towering figure in the world of sports. He had a connecting flight to catch, and while the encounter with the entitled woman still lingered in the back of his mind, he chose to let it go. He had done what he could to maintain his composure and show kindness, and that was enough for him. As he entered the lounge area to wait for his next flight, he noticed Liam and his dad seated nearby. Liam's excitement hadn't diminished. He was still clutching his phone, his smile as bright as the morning sun. This is what fueled him, these little moments, these acts of pure joy, the moments that reminded him why his humility and kindness were paramount, especially when others weren't as understanding. Steph found a quiet corner and settled in, ready for a moment of calm. But just as he began to scroll through his phone, a sudden commotion erupted at the lounge entrance. He looked up to see the same woman from the plane engaged in a heated argument with another passenger. Voices rose, heads turned, and chaos filled the usually peaceful lounge. "She just shoved right past me, without even an apology," exclaimed an older man. "Well, maybe you shouldn't have been blocking the walkway," the woman retorted, her tone sharper than a knife. The argument escalated quickly, and the lounge staff had to step in to de-escalate the situation. The tension was thick in the air, and the woman, visibly irritated, sat down at a nearby table, glaring at anyone who dared to look in her direction. Steph observed the scene from a distance, his thoughts turning not to her behavior, but to the ease with which people judge others without knowing their stories. He thought about the value of empathy, how it should permeate every interaction. As the lounge returned to some semblance of calm, Liam, still bubbling with energy, approached a staff member to ask for a snack, with his dad close behind. Steph watched them, his heart warming at the sight. These were the moments that truly mattered. Innocence and pure joy, a beautiful reminder of his own children. And that's when an idea struck him. A small gesture that might make Liam's day even more special. He reached for his bag and pulled out his phone. He typed a quick message, and a few minutes later, a member of his team arrived with a small package. Steph approached Liam and his dad, offering them the bag with a warm smile. Just a little something, to say thanks for making the flight more enjoyable. Inside the bag was a pair of Steph's signature Under Armour sneakers, along with a few other signed items. Liam's eyes practically exploded with excitement as he pulled out the shoes. "Thank you so much, Mr. Curry," the boy exclaimed. His dad was equally moved by the gesture. They exchanged a few more words, and the woman, from earlier, glanced over, her attention captured by the interaction. She hesitated, a flicker of change in her expression, before standing and walking towards them. Her demeanor was different now, softer, less defensive. "Excuse me," she began, her voice quieter than before. "I just wanted to say, I didn't realize who you were earlier. I'm sorry if I came off as rude." Steph looked at her, his expression calm and thoughtful. He paused for a moment and nodded. "It's okay," he said, his tone sincere. The woman lingered for a moment, unsure of what else to say. She glanced at Liam, now chatting animatedly with his dad, then back at Steph. "That was really kind of you," she said, finally, gesturing towards the gift. Steph shrugged lightly. "It's the little things that count." His simple words resonated with her. She offered a small, almost shy smile before returning to her seat. She was noticeably subdued. For the first time that day, she was seeing Steph not as a celebrity, but as a man of genuine character. Soon, the announcement for the next flight echoed through the lounge. Steph waved goodbye to Liam and his dad, grabbing his bag as he walked towards the gate. He glanced back at the woman one last time. She met his gaze and gave him a small smile, a gesture that carried acknowledgement, perhaps even gratitude. Steph left the lounge with a lighter heart, his step filled with more purpose. It wasn't about the fame, the recognition, or the accolades. For him, it was about moments like these, where kindness and grace could make all the difference. His focus was always on leading by example, not only on the court but in every aspect of his life. Little did he know that what happened next would leave an even bigger impact. As he boarded his next flight, the day's events replayed in his mind. The entitled woman, Liam's infectious joy. It was a mix of emotions, but it all circled back to his philosophy: kindness, humility, and gratitude. These were his anchors, the values that guided him. He wasn't seeking validation. He was simply living his truth. He stepped into the terminal, prepared to move on with his day, but his phone buzzed with a notification. A social media post had gone viral, a video capturing his interaction with Liam in the lounge and a portion of the earlier incident on the plane. A passenger had secretly filmed it all, captioning it, "Steph Curry proves why he's the GOAT, on and off the court." The post exploded, with thousands of comments pouring in. Fans and strangers alike praised Steph for his calm demeanor and generous spirit. The video even captured the moment the woman apologized, highlighting her change of heart. The story went viral, making headlines, trending across every platform. Steph smiled as he read the comments. He was never one to seek attention, but knowing that his actions had inspired others made everything worthwhile. One comment, in particular, stood out. "If more people acted like Steph, the world would be a better place." "Kindness changes everything," it stated. It was a simple sentiment that encapsulated his beliefs. Meanwhile, the woman from the plane also saw the video. Watching herself through someone else's eyes was a truly humbling experience. She realized how her behavior had come across and how Steph had handled everything with grace. For the first time in a long time, she felt compelled to reflect on her actions. Inspired by his example, she decided to make a change, beginning with an anonymous donation to a children's charity in Steph's honor. Back at home, Steph sat down to dinner, sharing the day's events with Aisha, his wife, and their kids. They listened intently, their eyes filled with pride, knowing that he always found ways to spread positivity. In the end, Steph's actions didn't just impact those he encountered that day. They demonstrated that kindness, no matter how small, has the power to change lives. And that is a legacy that far surpasses any championship ring. The lesson? We all have the potential to make a positive change. All it takes is a shift in perspective and a little bit of grace. Remember, judging a book by its cover often leads us to miss the most beautiful stories. The core message of this story lies in the potent reminder that we should never judge individuals based on superficial appearances or preconceived notions. The woman's initial dismissive treatment of Steph stemmed from her assumptions about who belonged in first class, highlighting a deeply ingrained bias that many of us unknowingly harbor. Steph's reaction, characterized by his calm demeanor and unwavering humility, showcases the transformative power of responding to adversity with grace rather than aggression. His actions underscore the importance of seeing beyond the surface, recognizing the inherent worth in every person, and understanding that true value is found in character, not social standing or outward appearances. By choosing not to engage in a confrontation, Steph demonstrated that true strength lies in quiet confidence and the ability to rise above pettiness. The story also emphasizes how seemingly small acts of kindness can create profound ripple effects. Steph's genuine interactions with Liam and his father, his generous gifts, and his acceptance of the woman's eventual apology all serve as powerful examples of how authenticity and empathy can impact others. The woman's journey, from initial arrogance to remorse, illustrates how witnessing kindness can challenge our biases and prompt positive change. Ultimately, this story teaches us that true influence doesn't come from status or fame, but from the consistent practice of integrity and the willingness to treat everyone with respect and compassion. It highlights that the legacy we leave behind will be measured not by our accomplishments, but by the kindness we extended and the positive difference we made in the lives of others.